Hello, and welcome to Chapter 9, Political Parties from the American Government Textbook, 3rd edition from Open Stax. In this chapter, we're going to talk about political parties, their formation, and how they've changed over the times. So political parties, what are they and what do they do? Political parties are groups of people with similar interests who work together to create and implement policies. So, of course, their main objective of political party is to win elections. That's all they're in it for. They want to be able to control the government with your elections. So, whether it be state, local, or federal elections, the political parties want to win. So, of course, there are some purposes of political parties: drafting legislation, guiding proposed laws through Congress, nominating candidates to run for state, Congress, and the presidency, amongst other local and state and federal positions. And of course, coordinating political campaigns and mobilizing voters. Those are the main things that political parties do. So, of course, here you can see the platform of the Progressive Party back in 1912. So each political party has a platform that they have. What do they want their party to do? What is it that they stand for? And of course, over the years and decades, political parties have changed over time. And of course, you can see here the Progressive Party in 1912. Their platform called for disclosure of campaign contributions, 8-hour workday, and federal income tax, and women's suffrage. So, what's the difference between political parties and interest groups? And there are differences between both of them. Interest groups often work indirectly to influence leaders, right? They don't really technically work directly with leaders. They work indirectly. Political parties, however, try to directly influence public policy through elections. Interest groups do not primarily elect candidates under a party label like political parties do. And here's another thing about political parties and the difference between political parties and interest groups. Interest groups stay the same no matter what. They have the same issue no matter the election cycle, no matter the candidate, no matter the time. For example, the National Rifle Association, one of the most powerful interest groups in the United States and one of the most well-known interest groups, they are for gun rights. And that is their main issue from thin and thin out, no matter what the election is. Political parties change over the time. The Democrat Party of today was not what it was 60 years ago. And the same thing with the Republican Party. They change over time to go with the times and, of course, with their main constituency in their party. So, of course, again, interest groups are more issue focused than they are with political parties. Political parties are in it to win elections. Interest groups are in it to win influence. So you can see here, Thomas Jefferson lost to the presidential 1800 to his running mate. So there are, over the time, now we are a two-party system, which we'll get to, but we are a two-party system where we have two dominant parties. You can see here, there have been, from 1832 to 2020, there have been some third parties that have appeared over the years, like the Socialist Party and some others. You can see the National Unity, the Reform Party, the Green Party. But most third parties in the United States have not really had any much success here. Maybe perhaps in 1860, 1912. But other than that, third parties really have not had much traction here in the United States. So, of course, over the time, political parties were formed. Political parties really didn't happen at the very beginning. And, of course, the Revolutionary Party led to the formation of the two original parties. They weren't officially parties, they were just the original parties that existed, which called the Federalists, which called for, if you remember, a central republic or a central government, and the Anti-Federalists, who favored more states' rights. So, of course, these were the original political parties here in the United States. And because of the formation of those two original ideas and parties, that kind of really led the way to our two-party system. So for 170 years, political parties have formed alternatives to the Republican and Democrat parties. So we have most elections at the state and national level and even local level have a winner-take-all, where the candidate with the most number of votes wins. Now, of course, there are places at the local level or the state level, if there is a tie, of course, in elections, of course, they go to a runoff. if that should be, if they don't win the necessary number of percentage of votes. And of course, elections tend to limit the number of people who run for office. Um, of course, because we want to make sure that people who are running for office are qualified. To be taken seriously, the candidate must convince voters that they have a real chance of winning election. Of course, this has really changed over time. There's some candidates who have no shot at winning the office, just do it for namesake or to get recognition, and they just do it for to see what happens. So plurality versus proportional representation. Plurality voting, also commonly referred to as first past the post, is based on the principle that the individual candidate with the most votes wins, whether or not they have a majority of it. The proportional representation electoral system, who is the candidate, of course, is the candidate the voters is like pick a party. And of course, these is where legislative seats are awarded to the parties based on the proportion of support. So you can see here, while the U.S. ballot A, so you can see here, first past the post elections, candidates' names, they of course are with the parties. Forces that limit the number of parties, right? We have, as I mentioned, we have plurality voting. The Electoral College, of course, remember, takes 270 to win. 270 electoral. The first to get 270 electoral votes wins the election. Demobilized ethnicity, campaign and election laws, and of course the relative prosperity of the United States. So that's why we don't have, like other countries may have a number of parties. We don't. We have a limited amount of parties, and because just the main reason is campaign election laws make it difficult for a third party to even be aware or be heard. Because this, financial, there's only so much money that can be split around for political parties, and the main parties, the Republican and Democrat Party, have the majority of the money. So party alignment and realignment, political parties exist again for the main sole purpose of winning elections, and they want to influence policy. So of course they have to build coalitions and get people to vote for them. There's a chance that voters, or an evolution of the political parties, of course, realignment may take place where, if some things are changing and we see, issues are changing amongst the voters, then of course there has to be some form of party realignment. So again, just a little review question for you to ponder and think about and to take a break. Why were the early U.S. political parties formed? So think about that from your readings as well. Why were the early U.S. political parties formed? Party-in-Electorate versus party organization. So what's the difference between both of them? The first one, the Party-in-Electorate, is when members of the voting public consider themselves part of that party, right? So that is an individual who says, I am part of the Republican Party, or I am part of the Democrat Party, or even as some candidate says, I'm part of the Green Party, which is the third party. So that is someone who represents themselves and considers themselves part of the political party. The party organization is a formal structure of the political party. Of course, how does the party, it's because every single political party has its leader, the chair of the party, and of course you have individuals who coordinate underneath that particular chair to make sure that candidates at the state and the federal level get elected from that party. You see here the party identification over the years. So, of course, importance of voting in a party organization. The role of a political party organization has been voted into power is to coordinate, of course, the candidates, the help select and elect candidates, and of course, those are the ones with the party brand. So the party organization makes sure that the candidates representing the party are doing the best job in making sure that they align with the voters' beliefs and support system. So the party does not want an individual who is going to oppose the political party's needs and wants and their policies. So, for example, if there's a Republican member, elected official, who is going against every single Republican value or issue, then the party is going to make sure to remind that person to align with the Republican values and beliefs, or else they're going to find tough support come the next election cycle with campaign funding. So you can see here how political parties have are bottom up structures. So you can see at the very bottom they have your local, your local and county and state, your local and county organization of people, leaders, and of course you go to the top. So party organizations, county, state, and national, right? You have your local and county organizations. You have your state organizations, and you have, of course, your very top, your national organizations. The national organizations are very heavily responsible for fundraising, and of course, they are the ones who their really sole purpose for the national organization is to fundraise for the presidential candidate, and of course, direct efforts to the House and Senate. Then you have your state organizations who also try to sway votes to the federal elected officials, but also at the state or level, and of course, the local and county organizations. They mobilize and make sure they get voters out there and people to volunteer and register voters, and also help them align with their party. So, of course, you can see here in August of 2012, Clint Eastwood at the Republican National Convention. Here is, of course, one of the famous speeches of then Barack Obama when he rose to the national prominence into the 2004 Democrat National Convention. At this time, he was, if I'm correct, he was a state senator for Illinois state senator, and he was running for the Senate, Illinois Senate seat. So this speech really brought him prominence. So party in government versus party in electorate. So party in government is made up of party members who are elected to office, the president and Congress, and when I would agree on different policies. And of course, the party in electorate is made up of voters who consider themselves members of a certain party. Problems of a divided government. So here is the problem: we have a divided government. When you are running for office, you make promises to voters that align with the party values. However, once you get elected, it's one thing to get elected, but it's another thing to govern. And then once you start governing, you find it difficult to reach across the aisle to individuals other side your party to align with what you promise your constituents, because the other elected official has to also meet the values of their constituents. So if you and the opponent of the other side of the aisle do not meet eye to eye because you're aligned to the issues that are with your voters, and they don't coincide together, then of course it makes it difficult to govern. A single party cannot claim success or failure for anything, and party loyalty may be challenged. So, of course, just a quick question, a review question. What are the positive and negatives of partisan polarization? So, again, what are the positive and negatives of partisan polarization? So, benefits of a divided government. The divided government might force parties to work together. Again, there may be some benefits to work together. And of course, parties can be kept in check from abusing power. So, of course, over the years, we've become polarized. So, party polarization is a term that describes the increasing the similarity between Republicans and Democrats. So, of course, over the years, it has become extremely difficult for individuals from political parties to come together. There's been some polarization, so it's become very difficult to align with one another, and of course, that they're not meeting its standards. So, of course, you can see here examples of two candidates who have become polarizing figures. To the left, you have Liz Cheney, representative, Republican House member from Wyoming, and of course, to the right, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a Democrat Congresswoman from New York. They have been both polarizing figures amongst their party. So Liz Cheney has really polarized within the Republican Party for standing up for what is right, amongst the individuals that she sees fit. And of course, some of her beliefs have not fit in or been very present with some of the Republican congressmen and elected officials. Alejandra Cortez has also been out there, and of course, she has challenged even her own party on making sure they meet the values and what they've set out to do for the Democrat Party. So, explanations for party polarization. Polarization is a party in government, of course, to change or a change in party allegiance in response to shifts in party position. Um, of course, another possible way is increasing sophistication of gerrymandering or manipulation of legislative districts to favor a particular candidate. And of course, gerrymandering is when districts are drawn to favor an elected official, or to even get an official elected out. Because if the district is drawn in a way, the district can be drawn in a way to make sure that that party stays in power through its elected official, or lose power. So of course you can see gerrymandering, and of course there are districts that are drawn in a way that are very weirdly formed in order to make sure that that specific House member candidate has the proper elected voters that's going to vote for them. Implications: instead of reducing inter-party conflict, positions have been amplified. Fewer members of Congress have mixed voting records. A growing number of moderate voters are not partisan in party politics anymore. So, of course, that was Chapter 10, Political Parties, from the American Government Textbook, 3rd edition, from Open Stax.